Right, I think we are in business now. You can see my screen, yeah?
Yeah, we can see your screen in presentation.
Great, so let me start it. Let's wind up to the beginning, everyone. Yeah, nice seeing you all, colleagues who previously met and new colleagues. Pity it wasn't a more face-to-face physical meeting, but here we are. So this particular session is titled Circular Economy versus Productivity. Why did we select that title? We selected to be intentionally provocative because since the start of the Scottish Institute for Remanufacturing, we've been working with the Institute on a number of circular economy related projects. And the more we work in circular economy projects, the more we cannot help to think that there might be a tension between circular economy and productivity as we define it. Productivity at the highest level, at the national productivity level, also productivity at firm level. So the work is managed by myself and my colleague Amos Hanif, but our researcher who's working on this particular area and the other circular economy related projects with us is Melissa, who's at this meeting, who will answer all the difficult questions. I'll take the easy ones at the end. Okay. So let's start with defining what circular economy is. So we start circular economy. If you look at our linear system, we start with the need, materials, processing, manufacturing, use, end of life, and waste. And we look at circularity. We say we want to recycle, remanufacture, or reuse to create some circularity in that system. So and we want to reduce the need for new resources at the beginning, and we want to get the maximum we can get out of waste by using it for energy recovery. So that's a simple model of circular economy. If you look at it, it is our consumption, resource consumption is set to double in the next 40 years. And if you look at it, we are only using 10% of waste for energy recovery. Only 1% of this system is being used for reuse, less than 2% for remanufacturing, and less than 10% for recycling. So we've got a long way to go. As it is depicted here, and when you look at sales of automotive cars, we see SUV sales going up over the last few years. And if you look at the electric car sales, it's quite small. And even the electric cars themselves are not, if you go from sort of diesel, hydrocarbon fuels, electric cars, we're not really achieving circularity. We're just reducing use of carbon fuels. If you look at also plastics, so if you look at all the plastics that's been produced, 30% of that is still in circulation, 55% is being discarded, 8% is being incinerated, and 7% is being recycled. So if you look at these sort of figures, you can see we are quite a way away from achieving this sort of utopia of creating a fully circular economy. And we need to ask the question, why are we there and what are the challenges? And if you look at circularity, the circularity increases as we go from recycling to remanufacturing and reuse. Reuse has got less resource consumption, whether it's energy, electricity, people, raw materials. Whereas if we recycle things, we need to take the finished product, end of its life. We need to, if it is steel, we need to melt it. We need to turn it into another sheet metal, and then it's used for manufacturing of the next product. So recycling itself has got some environmental implications in terms of resource consumption, energy use, etc. And we'll get some more examples of this coming along. So if we ask ourselves, what is productivity? It's a simple ratio between inputs and outputs, and usually revenues or gross domestic product per hour's work is the typical measure, and it's driven by labour, high quality of labour, equipment, experience, innovation, trade and regulation. Generally, when productivity goes up, we know that the wages go up, prices come down, profits go up, economic growth is better. So we use productivity as indicating a indicator for economic growth. And if you look at how we look at productivity in an international sort of global scene, we compare national productivities using like this DHI report, which puts Scotland sort of mid-scale, and you can see behind United Kingdom was only about 2 steps ahead from us. But you see at the far end, Ireland, Luxembourg, Norway, Belgium, United States sitting there. So we are not certainly the worst, but we are not the best. But the key thing here is to show that productivity is an important agenda item in all nations. So if you look at Scotland, European Union, China, and you can go to any government's website, and what you will find is reports that are saying how important economic growth and therefore productivity is, improving productivity. But in the same websites, you will find information about how important circular economy is in these countries. So, so when we see these priorities being set at the government level, both at for circular economy and productivity, we start to, and then we ask this question: is there a tension between these two? Are they in competition? Yeah, which made us look a bit more detail into this. So let me start. The next section is by asking this question. So we've got a poll here. So do you think there is a tension between circular economy and productivity? So Kat is just going to put the poll up. If you could respond to that, hopefully this will work. So I'll stop talking for a minute and let you respond to the poll. It did appear on my screen a few minutes ago. Yeah. Okay, so I can't see the screen, Kat. Could you, do we know what the results looking like? I don't know why I can't see the screen. Let me just see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 80% return at the minute. So 21 out of the 26 participants have voted, and at 57% is some tension. At 24% is a lot of tension, and 19% is no tension. Okay,
it's very interesting results. Yeah, so I think this is exactly the debate we wanted to create from today's presentation. So let me just move on and let me demonstrate what we are seeing. If I could get my... So what we've done is on these slides, I'm not going to take you to the details of these slides. We'll be circulating the slides afterwards. We've looked at each component of circular economy, that's reducing, remanufacturing, recycling, and reuse. And we looked at how what sort of strategies can be used for making reduce happen in this case, and how that would impact consumer, supply chain, government. When we say government here, we're talking mainly from a productivity perspective and environment. Yeah. So I'm just going to use the first two as an example. So, for example, gaining eco efficiencies from products and processes by reducing usage. Yeah, consumer feels good, cost comes down, resource productivity goes up. And there are some marginal gains at the environmental impact. If you look at design for durability, we use things longer. The downside is that things go out of fashion. It tends to be sort of a more premium strategy, and manufacturer supply chain wants to build some strategic obsolescence into it because they want to the product to go obsolete, so they can come up with the next generation of product. And but what that does is, if you actually keep things longer, keep it longer, GDP goes down, productivity goes down. But the good thing is that resource usage goes down, so environmental impact. So there is a clear tension here. So, and what I want to do is draw your attention to this part of this chart, where we are seeing a red phase and a green phase, which shows a clear tension. So we can see it further down. We see reducing consumption. We see clear tension. When we go to reuse, we again, in the top two areas, we are seeing clear tension. So this is sale of used products, reusable products, creating tension. And then if you look at remanufacturing and productivity, again, we are seeing in two of the three areas here, we are seeing tension between remanufacturing and productivity. And I've got some examples of that will bring these to life in a few slides time. And similarly, if you look at recycling, there is some tension up here. If you achieve industry symbiosis, there's no tension. So depending on the context and what we are doing, and of course, all of these are depending what the product is, what the market is, and so on. It impacts how these things. We're trying to generalize things here. So let's look at some examples. So in a previous study that we did looking at circular economy business models, remanufacturing business models, we were asking the question, how is value created in remanufacturing? And we came up with 4 types of generic business models. And what comes very clearly there is that OEM status, if you are the OEM or if you are affiliated with OEM, it creates high value. This is like having your Mercedes being serviced by a Mercedes service station garage, rather than taking to a back street garage. Yeah. So that and the next dimension, the horizontal dimension, is level of servitization. So OEMs who were actually providing a asset management service is going to be creating the highest value, for example. That, yeah. But this was reported in the previous study. But if we reflect on that, one of the things we observed was that, so here is one particular case of an OEM, but there's actually 3 companies fits into this from our study. 3 companies fits into this example. So you start the OEM, you get certain sales up here, and then you introduce remanufacturing or repair, reconditioning of your, that's why we call it REX, of your own brand, of your own OEM equipment. So you grow your revenues in the back of that, and then you say, well, we are good at this remanufacturing, reconditioning, repair. So what we'll do is we'll start repairing, remanufacturing, even upgrading our competitors' products. So that sales are increasing there again. And then what you find is after a time, your actual revenue mix changes. You can see the turning point here. At this point, revenue mix, you're making more revenues from, so you're actually start to cannibalize your own OEM sales. And after a while, in 3 of the companies, is what we've seen is that they have become a third party, virtually independent repair shops or reconditioning shops, and their OEM status has diminished significantly. So what we've seen is that although their sales are going up, their margins actually start to come down as they pursue this strategy. So there is a smiley face here. Yes, yeah, we got increasing sales, but there is a point of turning point somewhere there. We're saying, actually, from a firm perspective, is this the right thing to do? Although we've grown, we've increased our sales, but we're making potentially less money. and operating in a more competitive environment. So what is the turning point? Where is the balance to be headed here from a firm's perspective? Certainly, at least two of the firms we talked to here were thinking that they probably was the wrong strategy to pursue. Another example here is that when we look at so value creation at the firm level, and remanufacturing seems to be fueled by, influenced by value of the product or the asset that we are actually remanufacturing. Yeah. So in this high value area, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. For profit, there's definitely money to be made by offering remanufacturing services up here, repair, reconditioning services in this area. Whereas at the lower end, so if you've got a jet engine or an expensive gearbox, yes. If you've got a toaster or a hair dryer, remanufacturing, it doesn't pay for itself. But there is a grey area. I won't go into detail of this, but in one example is that a commercial for-profit firm is collaborating with a not-for-profit to provide a one-stop service to their clients to actually make it work in this area. So there is that grey area where, between no-brainer and no bother, where there are some collaborative opportunities. We'll come back to that in a minute. Another example from offshore decommissioning. Yeah, if you look at the offshore decommissioning, which is in itself is decommissioning is a cost, but what can we create value out of this? So the first thing we need to recognize is that a very small amount of material goes into landfill. But if you look at the decommissioning process, we have there is an unaccounted amount of material input. We need to create new equipment and we need to new materials to actually help us do the decommissioning. But if you look at what happens in decommissioning, 34 to 95% by weight of the structure is actually abandoned in the sea. Now, that might be the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, not being judgmental here, but it's not being recycled or reused or remanufactured. But if they reuse, repurposing, remanufacturing is less than 2% by total weight. Some very small quantities for very limited items are actually being repurposed, recycling. But a lot of it is being exported, it's less than 2% being reused, repurposed, and remanufacturing. And a lot of the content is actually being recycled, but it's exporting the recycling to countries like Turkey and Spain, which have got 60% more CO2 emissions. So the recycling itself has got negative environmental implications. So although we might be reporting one thing, saying that that's very good, we are actually recycling everything, but the way we are recycling it and the potential impact of that is not necessarily the best things we could do. So, but in here we need to ask ourselves, so why is things like the remanufacturing and reuse? It's clearly beneficial to Scotland's productivity. We've got the Institute, we've got other examples. Why is that this not happening within the decommissioning? Yeah, I'm using decommissioning as an example here, but I think that some of the lessons learned here is more widely applicable. So if you look at barriers to decommissioning, barriers to reuse of decommissioned materials, so they categorize it as being perceived barriers and real barriers. Perceived barriers are, well, the perceptions is that, well, we need bespoke, so we can't reuse things, we need them new, made to order, made engineered for a particular purpose. The perception that there's lack of demand, and operators' mindset and culture, because they've never done it before. There's a risk awareness of it, you know, it's a similar thing. Do I want to buy used tires for my daughter's car where I could actually just afford to buy new ones? Yeah. But if you really look at the real barriers behind this, there is some opportunities there, and we've got a report that's about to be published in this area, which we just finished the project, and with more details in there. But we need to make sure that equipment information is shared within the supply chain in a timely manner, so that doesn't happen at the moment. And the revenues we're getting from this is negligible, and the operators or the people in that supply chain or in that ecosystem have got bigger fish to fry effectively. So by worrying about reuse, they'll be putting their energy into something. They're going to get less returns than the other thing. Yeah. So in a way, there is the lack of information and coordination from across the ecosystem or the supply chain is one aspect. So lack of collaboration effectively, and with the right regulatory incentivization, the environment, the ecosystem can be motivated to behave in a different way there. So I want to stop at this point with the conclusion. There are clear tensions between circular economy and productivity, depending clearly on context. In the short term, there are some opportunities, no-brainer opportunities that we should go on and actually do recycle, remanufacture, reuse as much as we can, because there is actually value to be created, both growth to be achieved at national level and value to be created at firm level. At the medium term, there are those mid-level spaces where there is we can achieve the same results through collaboration amongst the ecosystem to maximize the value for circular economy. And something we've learned out of the projects that we've done, circular economy doesn't work in a firm. A firm can do so much in making circular economy work within their own capabilities and boundaries. And we need to look at in a much wider context and think about that supply chain and in other words, the ecosystem, and we need to enable the ecosystem to work. So how we can maximize value from CE, circular economy. And when I say value, both creating productivity, contributing to economic growth at national level, but also creating profits at firm level. But in the longer term, we clearly see the need to rethink how we define productivity in the context of circular economy. Based on the numbers that we presented here, and at the very start, I've started the presentation saying we are significantly way away from achieving circularity. We can't help to think that we need to redefine productivity, because I think redefining circularity is not an option, or not doing circularity is not an option if we're going to sustain the planet we live in. Thank you. We are happy to take any questions and comments.
Thank you, Umit. That was a very good presentation. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A box at the lower half of your screen. Umit, for the first one, we've got Lewis Scott who asks, how useful do you feel incineration is as a solution for dealing with product waste, or do you believe we must continue to innovate to find methods that release fewer emissions?
Yeah, that's a depends is the answer, I think. Yeah, depends what the product waste is. In my view, we need we clearly don't want to incinerate things we can be reused or remanufactured or even recycled. Yeah, we want to get, but because incinerating them suggests that we will lose them from our system, the economic ecosystem. So we'll need to replace those with new, whether it's digging up from the earth or growing them or whatever, we need to replace them with new supply. So we want to minimize that if we can. But certainly if we can't do anything, it's better than landfill. It's just what are the alternatives? It's better than landfill because it generates energy, provided that we don't at the same time pump in carbon dioxide and pollute the environment. As long as we can control that aspect, it's better. But then we need to ask what would reuse, recycle, remanufacture not be better than incinerating?
That's right. Okay, thanks, Umit. The second question is around offshore decommissioning. What about the biologic materials, animal and plant growth in structures that can be used as part of the bioeconomy, for example?
I answered that one.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of talks in the literature about, I think what you're talking about here, they call it marine growth. And there is a company here in Scotland that was experimenting in how to recycle the marine growth, because when you remove a platform, it comes with tons and tons of life that just grows around the structure. And currently, we don't do anything with it. It goes to landfill or, but there's a company experimenting with recycling. I think they've done it for the first time. But there's also a massive debate right now in the literature in regards to what's best to do with the platform, because basically there's in 1998, a law was created that requires offshore platforms to be removed from the ocean. And this was actually created due to pressures from the environmental organizations. But now we're actually starting to think, wait a minute, decommissioning projects, they're massive, they're very, very wasteful. Is this the best thing to do, or should we actually just leave the platform there but use them as artificial reefs? That might be better for the marine life. Also, I don't know if you saw, but there was a documentary that was released this year on Netflix, which is about David Attenborough's life. And actually, it's a good parallel because he shows, without giving a spoiler, but he shows Chernobyl, and he shows a picture of how nature is growing back in Chernobyl. So people are not there anymore. It's just old buildings, but nature is taking the place back. So I think that is a good parallel with the offshore platforms. Maybe if we just leave it there, it could be better for the marine life.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there is a comment that we'll flag at this stage, which is circular economy is not about reducing waste, it's about giving value to waste. So incineration is the last resort solution. Yep, completely agree and support that. We even state that recycling is the last resort in a circular economy, because that's where you can't find an alternative use to truly capitalize on the embedded carbon within that product. So next question is there any evidence that companies are designing new products for reuse? So Umit, I'll let you answer this, and then I'll point to some companies that are actually doing this as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad I asked that question, Matt. One of I drive a BMW X3, and they've just launched a new electric version. And I would love to be able to take it in and say, can you just upgrade it for me? Yeah. I don't want to change the car, I just upgrade the drive system. Now, if you look at Lin Products, the hi-fi company, one of their value propositions right from the start, now it's been 37, 40 years or something like that since they were founded. Their mission is being to create very high value, very high performing hi-fi products, which are upgradable. So you can actually buy the Lin Sondeck turntable. If you go to Stereo in Glasgow, there is one there, the original turntable that was produced in the first or second year of manufacturing, which has been fully upgraded to today's technology. So I don't think we do enough of this. we don't think about this enough. We are thinking, okay, you know, you take the car for an example. It's that throwaway. I had my car 3 or 4 years. I traded in by another one, and the car will be recycled, and the materials will go back in again. It'll come back as a Tesla or something like that in a few years' time. But that's not what we are trying to achieve. As Paul said there, the recycling should be our last resort. We think we should be thinking about life extension and how do we extend its life. How do we create a car for life that we never do buy another car again, or anything? Yeah, I'm just using car as an example because one of these high value consumer products that we are very wasteful about, including myself.
Yeah, we're also seeing products being launched in remanufacturing from light systems to companies coming around for the automotive sector and the aerospace sector, developing remanufacturing processes for products that aren't originally designed for remanufacturing.
Yeah.
But there is evidence to show that by considering remanufacturing at the design stage, you can actually design out 80% of the carbon footprint associated to that product. So it's quite key that at the design stage you can start to influence the life cycle of a product and how it can be embedded.
I think Elsa's question that we missed earlier on about use of biological materials in regards to offshore decommissioning, it relates to this. You know, if we have designed the structures, offshore structures, you know, 20, 30 years ago with saying, okay, with decommissioning in mind, we might have used different kind of materials to actually, so that they actually, you know, become part of the ecosystem there. That they are becoming part of the ecosystem there, but by force rather than by design at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So the next question is, do we need a more nuanced approach where we are better understanding the best circular economy value opportunity for each waste stream? And if so, how might we best promote or incentivize that? So that's by David Balkind.
Yeah. So I'll have a go at stab at answering that. So I suppose there was a slide I used which said high value, low value, and the sort of the grey space in the middle, which is the collaborative space. So let me. So there is clearly some space there where it's not a so if you take an aerospace jet engine, you know, you will bring it back and refurbish it, remanufacture it, recondition, and you extend its life that way. Yeah. But as you come down the value, that you come to that space. So we did a project. It was one of the earlier SIR projects where we looked at can we create a circular? Can we create value out of electronics circular economy? And we've done an experiment. We work with Menzies Distribution, people who deliver newspapers to petrol stations and newsagents in the middle of the night when most of us are sleeping, and most of their vans return back empty or half empty. So we thought, could we use that to actually collect electronic waste? So we used 2 postcode areas in Glasgow. We actually motivated households to drop their electronic waste in the local newsagents, and Menzies Distribution collected them and delivered them to their warehouse, and actually at end of the week they delivered them to CCL North for remanufacturing, repurposing components, reusing the components effectively where appropriate, and the last resort is recycling. And what we modeled, the data came from that came from there, and we also looked at some of the drivers why people were participating in this. Obviously, Menzies were looking at, can we use this to use capacity and create value from this capacity. CCL North was looking at as being, well, can we get increased raw materials that we can create value for ourselves and make more money? Why did the newsagents collaborate? Well, newsagents initially collaborated them because we gave them £25 a week, I think it was, or a month, I can't remember now, to collaborate in this. But afterwards, when we asked them, but would they continue, they wanted to continue without that £25 incentive, because what they said is, the big impact of this has been, biggest benefit has been increased footfall for my business, but because people coming in, dropping something off, at the same time picking up some shopping. That was interesting, something we didn't expect. But what that shows is that, so that showed us two things. One of them things is that to make something like this work, we need to look at, there's at least 4 players there, yeah, the consumer, the news agent, the logistics company, the recycling, and we need to add the market onto there as well, because one of the constraints for increasing was the demand. You know, we could increase the supply of the raw materials into CCL North, but you know, we need to be able to, CCL North be able to sell these things. Yeah, that could be a constraint on the market. But the numbers showed us that it is possible to create a value creating reverse supply chain ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, that would make enough money to make it worthwhile for this particular example. And these are fairly low value items. You know, we were getting toasters and kettles and mobile, you know, disused mobile phones. I've got, as I'm talking to you, I've got 3 mobile phones sitting in front of my desk and a Fitbit. See, this is my pile of, and this has been sitting here for months, so it's not a prop for this thing. So people were like this, who said, well, this has been sitting here, I'll just take them to the local shop, and they will go and value will be created out of them. Yeah. So yeah. So to answer your question, I think we need to look at each product, item, or category, and ask this question: how can we, either individually or working together, squeeze value out of this this circular economy by creating a circular economy around this product, so that we actually, one, minimize environmental impact and have a contribution to economic growth. But I can't help thinking that even if we did that, we are actually stopping new product sales. Yeah. So the more used mobile phones we pump into the economy, the less new mobile phones we are going to sell, and that's going to impact GDP and productivity figures at national level. So this is my dilemma. Yeah.
Thanks, Umit. So I'd say the last one, conscious of time, is rear cars. Should we take a lead from Cuba, where economic necessity has kept cars assets in use for decades?
Yeah, you know, I will trade my BMW's 3 Series, the X3, anytime for one of these real 30-year-old American classics. You know, doesn't matter if it's covered in rust. But yeah, it's an interesting question. So should we all be looking at extending the life of our assets and use them longer? Yeah. And the answer is, if we do, we will have created greater circularity in our economy. Certainly the environmental impact will be less, but economy will really slow down economic growth, because as we've seen in just the pandemic, people stopped buying fuel because they stopped driving to work, and they're using their cars less. Well, some people have said, do I need 2 cars? I'm happy to we just learned that we only need 1 car in our family. Our neighbors actually just did that. So thinking about all of those things, it's actually reducing consumption. And if people say, I'm not going to buy 2 cars any longer, if everybody says that, I'm going to buy 1 car, there's suddenly half the size of the automotive industry in UK. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's good that the automotive industry as a whole is actually leaders in the remanufacturing area. So they are leading the way, and we see in the US as well, there are new business models from certain car manufacturers or leasing agencies where they are looking to retain the asset so that they can appropriately deal with it at, not necessarily at the end of life, but they can deal with it to repurpose and extend its life elsewhere. And some good comments in terms of choice given scarcity of key elements, and the fact that urban mining is perhaps going to start coming into its own for key materials as well. So yeah, I agree. There's some key lessons to be learned from cross industries. So I'd say that that's it. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to write them in. We will get parties to respond to these. Please do visit the Scottish Institute for Remanufacturing new website, where we've got the future events posted on there. And thank you very much to Umit for providing the material today. Very insightful. And thank you to you all for partaking in the second of a series of SIR webinars in remanufacturing. And we'll just bring it to it.
Really enjoy this, and despite the technology problem at the beginning.
It's fine. Thank you, Umit, and thank you all, and goodbye.
Bye.